because I don't know, you want me to talk about his medical history, what happened to him, and all that. So just to give you a background, we're both nurses. He was an RT for about over 10 years, and he pursued to become, and then he pursued to become an RN. I am an RN. He pursued RN, because I was hoping that I would be a housewife, but that didn't happen. We were still both working. So even in the beginning, even as an RN, he established the business. So he's nonstop. You know, he as an RN on the side, he's always got a business on the side. So it started on March 7th of last year, so it's been a year and a half. He got into an accident. It's a go-kart. I don't know if you guys are aware of those go-karts. But it was not even a fast crash. It was just that it flipped over and he ended up landing on the top of his head. He broke his neck. So for everybody in the medical profession, it was a C4, C5 fracture. So that is a really high, fracture. So we already kind of like know what to expect. They took him to Arrowhead, and in Arrowhead, his heart rate stopped. Actually, his heart stopped, so they had to resuscitate him. They coded him in the emergency room, and then they ended up putting a traction, those halo traction, and you put a 20-pound. And then they were gonna take him to surgery the next day, but they couldn't take him because every time they try to do something to him, his heart rate would stop. And so he coded again, for the second time. After a few days, they had to put a temporary pacemaker just so they can take him to surgery. So after a few days, he got a temporary pacemaker, and then they were able to take him to surgery at Arrowhead. And then less than a week, we got transferred to Kaiser in Anaheim. Over in Anaheim, he ended up for RT, ARDS. So it's a pneumonia, full blown. So basically, they were on 100% oxygen. They had like the highest speed that they can. They put him on flow line, everything that they can to get him. But the last resort was the proning. So if you guys are familiar, when they're really bad pneumonia, they put them on their stomach, basically. So just to to circulate for the airway. So we didn't want that, because for that they had to paralyze him some more when you have to be in that situation. So they had to put him on a proning bed, a special bed. So he was on it for like 3 days. And then eventually, he got out of it. He responded really well with
Thank
the proning.
God.
So eventually, he got out of it. But of course, he ended up with a tracheostomy. But fortunately, it's capped now, so it's still there just for protection, but he can breathe okay. He's not dependent on the ventilator, thank God. He had a feeding tube at one point, but he worked on trying to improve his swallowing and all that with therapy. So now he doesn't have a feeding tube, so he eats, like regularly. In the beginning, he's only able to move the shoulders, but now he can actually move his arms, show him the movement of your arms. So
Oh, praise God. Awesome.
Yeah, and then he is using this as as he drives the wheelchair. But now they're training him to drive the wheelchair with the hand. So eventually they're moving on training him to get a hand-driven kind of wheelchair. And then on top of that, of course, when we came home, he got a little depressed because, the way the situation was. But he never gave up. We had a lot of support from family, friends. Jasmine was one. Well, we have a lot of like support, from friends and family. And we were able to go through the bump. We were able to go home. And then right now, what he's doing is he's actually established a business, which we'll talk about to you guys about later. And he's just moving forward. He's just very innovative, just trying to reinvent himself. He's in the computer. I wish I could show you a video, but he's in the computer, and then he has like something that he used with his mouth, like a left click and right click, like a mouse. And so that's how he is able to get into the computer and send emails and get his business dealing together. So
Jasmine, do you have a,
Yeah, but I have a laptop.
you have internet connection there?
Yeah, I have a laptop.
If you do, you can show the video. I have a website also that I established.
Awesome.
So, any more?
Well, mainly I just wanted to say that, you know, the business that we're doing, I was a part of this business too, WFG, Transamerica. We see the other side as, like, we're selling insurance, we're selling people this, but on the other side of it, the spectrum is us. If we didn't have, we have Nationwide basically.
Oh,
So
you're
right
full.
now, Nationwide is paying us because we have a rider. So basically, it's paying us, or that's the one that's paying for the caregiver, because we need a 24-hour caregiver. If we didn't have Nationwide, if, you know, if nobody helped us open up, you know, about this, I mean, we would have been a really financial, you know.
Devastated.
We would have been devastated, but we have people like you guys who goes out, you know, to people and try to explain the benefit of it. It's hard to see when you don't really see the whole picture, but this is an example of somebody who, or our family who benefited from this kind of, you know, from this kind of business. It's not just you make good money, but you help people too, like us, basically.
So,
Are you
And-
still licensed, guys? Are you still licensed?
No, I'm not anymore. We just have so much going on, you know, between the two of us. So we are, our license kind of like, you know,
yeah.
that kind of just
Mhm.
fell off.
She was Series 6, you guys.
Uh-huh.
At some point, yeah.
Really?
But yeah,
But with all this going on,
it's
yeah,
hard to.
it'll be hard to make.
Hard to focus.
Yeah. Well, anyways, again, my name is James, and I started with WFG a few years ago. In fact, right around the time Jasmine, Francis, Jean, all those guys were just barely starting out themselves. Dan Charlier's big shop then was probably a quarter of the size I'm sure it is now. And anyways, Francis was the person who approached me. Actually, I was at work one night and I overheard his wife, Jean, talking about financial planning, which I was interested in at the time. So I invited her and her husband, Francis, to come over. And one thing led to another, and before you know it, I'm in Las Vegas. At one of the conventions. And when I started in the business, I took off pretty fast. I did the 330 right away, and within a matter of a few short months, I had 12 licensed under me, and then I ended up working over at Loma Linda, and I spoke with just a few people there, and a few of them came on under me onto the team as well. So I think half of Francis's team was from Loma Linda now, right? So it's just a matter of finding the opportunities and just speaking, you know. One of the things that I was really good at is speaking and explaining how things work, just in simple terms. You know, you don't have to be well versed in the mumbo jumbo. It's just speaking simply and plainly to people. And then also relaying a story. One of the things that Lisa, right? She used to say is, if you don't have your story, borrow somebody else's.
Right.
Right? And so that's what I would do. I would use Francis or his wife or other people who were successful in relaying the message, and I would use their story until I got my own. Well, now I got my own. So, but let me just give you a little background on myself. I was born in Los Angeles, and at the age of 14 years old, I was a member of the Guardian Angels. I don't know if all of you are familiar with that group, but it's a crime type of neighborhood watch type of group. Started in New York.
Yeah.
And anyways, I became a member in Los Angeles. And while on a patrol one night, I got shot in the back. And I was shot with a .357, which is a pretty powerful gun. And I was pretty bad, and I almost lost my life. And the least of which would have been the ability to walk. It was pretty close to my spine. So at 14 years old, I didn't know if I was gonna make it or not. So I believe in God, so I asked him if I was gonna die that night. And he told me, just in as plain a voice as anyone could hear, no, I got too much work for you to do. And so I didn't really know what that meant until I became an adult. I thought it was gonna be through nursing or being a respiratory therapist or something to do with my career. How I would repay, what he had done for me that night. And I thought, okay, well, maybe it'll be through selling life insurance policies, helping people out, right? Prepare. And no, it wasn't that. When I got into my accident with the go-kart, I was probably driving at about 10 miles an hour. And it was a freak accident. I hit a rock, and the cart turned to the right sharply, and then it flipped over, and it broke my neck instantly. I heard the brake, and when I couldn't move my head, I knew that I was in pretty bad shape. And thankfully, at the time of the occurrence, I was still coherent, and I was able to give the people who were first on the scene my wife's information so that she can be called. I was literally 30 feet away from my house. And anyways, I knew it was pretty bad because I was starting to have trouble breathing. And so I asked again to God if I was gonna die that day. The same thing he told me all those years ago was, no, I have too much work for you to do. And so I knew I was gonna be okay. We went through a lot, as my wife explained. She explained the medical aspect of what I was going through. But from my perspective, I was going through a whole lot more. And you know how they say when you have a near-death experience, you kind of float over your body and see people you lost along the way.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't happen for me. In fact, I was taken somewhere else, and it was kind of like a dark place. But I still heard everyone's prayers for me. In fact, there was one scenario where I was kind of being tormented. I knew I couldn't move. I was paralyzed, and somebody was tormenting me like a devil or whatever. But then I heard my brother's prayer, was saved. And when I came to and I was able to speak again, the first person I called was my brother. And I said to him, I want to thank you. And he says, oh no, you don't have to thank me. You know I'll do anything for you. I said, no, you don't understand. I want to thank you for praying for me. I saw you kneeling down in your room and you were praying for me. And he had to pull over to the side of the road. He was on his way to visit me. And we both just cried. You know, my brother's not a religious person. And for him to do that and have that epiphany was pretty powerful for the both of us. But the reason why I'm here is I want to explain to you, first of all, how I got my policy, and second, what it has done for me and how it's benefiting me and my family. This is why it's important for you guys to be well versed in what you're selling. You can't just go out there and say, oh, I sell insurance and I deal with this company, that company, and whatever. You have to know what you're selling to people and make sure it is right for that particular family, because no two families' needs are the same. And in my case, no one expects to be in the condition that I'm in or even go through a traumatic experience. For the most part, you know, I'm 40, 42, healthy, you know, good career, making good money. And together my wife and my income was, we're doing about 300 plus a year. And WFG was, for us, well, you know, you can do it, or you don't really have to do it. But the thing that got me was the person who was introducing the policies and the products to us, which happened to be Francis. And Francis was pretty much just starting out, but he knew it was for him, and so he got really involved in what he was selling. And if he didn't know the answer, he always found out and returned the phone calls right away. And that's what's important for you guys as agents, is to really be in close communication with your clients. Because I can tell you right now, if I didn't receive any of those phone calls and left hanging, I would never have gone with purchasing a policy from someone who was, I felt, on the same level as I was. We're both nurses. So anyways, he told me about WRL and Nationwide, and we ended up going with a Nationwide policy. Then later on, a few months later, he told us about the rider that they had just had, which was, if you were to lose 2 abilities to perform activities of daily living, then you're entitled to draw from your main policy up to whatever limit that you were paying for on the rider, right? So my personal policy was a $250,000 policy, life insurance. The rider was for $150,000. When all this happened, I didn't even think about the policies right away. What I was thinking about was, what was my job gonna do for me? I'd been there at Kaiser for 17 years. And what benefits does Kaiser have for someone in my situation? Well, first of all, the first thing you get is red tape. And everything that Kaiser does for you is to steer you away from finding out what's under the next layer. You have to investigate on your own. And so basically, Kaiser was gonna cover me with disability for 18 months. That's it. They tried to get away with just 1 year, but we had to fight for that. And for any of you who work for Kaiser, and this is a good thing that you can use when you're talking to people from Kaiser, is that unless you are hired prior to 2009, they consider the number of hours you work in a year to be the time that they measure for the length of employment. For example, if you worked 1,000 hours in 1 year, Kaiser considers that as having worked full-time and you got a full year, right? But let's say you worked 900 hours in that year. It would take you 1,200 hours in the following year to be considered having 2 full years of employment. Now, let me tell you where that comes into play. When you have an early retirement or a sudden disability or whatever the case may be that causes you to lose your employment physically, Kaiser can use those hours and tally them up and say at the last minute, well, no, you didn't quite meet the criteria for having worked over 10 years, even though I've worked 17 years. The first 7 years I was part-time. I worked full-time hours most of the time, but not all of it. So they accrued all the hours I had worked over all the time I was with Kaiser. And they said I fell 17 hours under the benefit that would have covered me for 18 months instead of a year. So we had to fight for that, of course. And it took a lot of calls from this place to that place to finally get it narrowed down to what I was entitled to, which was 18 months. Now, how many of you have or have had 401ks through Kaiser? Anybody? Well, here's another thing that you can tell your future clients who happen to work for Kaiser or for any hospital or place of work that offers 401ks. I thought that surely I can withdraw from my 401k to cover my medical expenses. You know, it's money I had saved up, I'm entitled to it. But that's not the case. First, if I'm employed through Kaiser or whatever place you're employed through, if you're still on the books as an active employee, even though you're receiving disability, you are not entitled to withdraw or roll over your 401k. Because you are still technically employed. So in my case, I was employed for the next 18 months. So I couldn't use any of my 401k money to prepare for what I had to do, which was cost me thousands of dollars. second, I thought, okay, well, surely there's a clause for a medical emergency that will allow me to take a early distribution. There is a clause. However, the clause is it has to be an emergency situation. Well, they say that you have to have lost multiple activities of daily living. I said, well, I'm paralyzed from the shoulder down. How could that not qualify? They said, well, technically you don't qualify as a medical emergency because you're medically stable. That's what they told me. You're breathing okay, you're eating okay, even though it was through a G-tube, you're still getting nutrition. You haven't lost any limbs.
Cool, isn't it?
You haven't lost any limbs, technically. I said, well, I can't move them. Yeah, but you still have them.
Whoa. Cool.
So no, we can't draw from the 401k unless you lose a limb, unless you are unstable medically. They said, you're in hospice, practically. Will you qualify to withdraw money early? So, that was that. And, what happened was, Francis and Jean came to visit me in the hospital. I'd totally forgotten about my rider policy. In fact, I didn't know we were even still paying on it because my wife handles all the bills. If it were left to me, we wouldn't still be paying on it. Anyways, they said, James, you know you have that rider clause that I signed you up for through Nationwide. I said, yeah, I remember that. I already got denied for the 401k. Was that different? He said, yeah, that's completely different. Let me make some phone calls and I'll take care of it for you. I didn't have to lift a finger. My agent took care of it for me. He made all the necessary phone calls and gave them all the information they required and corresponded with my wife. And I was able to secure my withdrawings, which is about $3,000 a month from my policy. That comes directly from my $250,000 benefit, up to $150,000. Without that, I don't know where we would have been. We would have been devastated. Our caregivers cost about $3,500 or more per month. Look. So, that said, that was truly a blessing for us. I'll tell you another story about one of our coworkers, Jasmine, who she retired and she didn't get a policy and went to Las Vegas, her and her kids, son and daughter, I believe. And on their way back from Las Vegas, they got into a terrible accident and she lost her life. Only a month earlier was she introduced to the opportunity to secure a policy for her and her family. So, unfortunately, they were only left with whatever she had from the Kaiser policies to leave behind for her family. So, when you're talking to people, you know, you have to relay the message to them, the importance, not just how much money they're spending in the short term, but how much they're saving in the long run, especially when something tragic may happen. We're all not promised tomorrow. You know, we appreciate the day that we're given, but the promise of tomorrow is not, it's not for all of us, for any of us, for that matter. I never thought that I would be in a wheelchair talking to you guys, giving you a perspective that I've been experienced in. But, so my policy will run out in about 4 or 5 years based on the rate of how much I have to pay my caregivers. But that is enough time for me to do something else so I can make arrangements to take care of my affairs and get them in order. That's why I started a business. That's why I am building a house in the back of my own house so that I can have rental property back there. That's why my wife, you know, thanks to our policy, she's not having to pick up an extra job because we are sustaining our same level of income pre the accident date, thanks to our policy, you know.
Amen.
So, you know, one of the things that lured me into WFG was the money I could make, you know. When I went to Las Vegas, we were invited to Paul and, what's his brother's name?
Nathan.
Nathan.
Paul and Nate's suite at the MGM, and they had one of the penthouse suites, and only a select few people were invited back. So since I was with Francis, I was one of the people that got invited back, and I was really impressed. It was a 3,000 square foot suite with, it was 2 stories, and you know, it was really nice. And I thought, okay, this is the lifestyle I want to live. So it was the money that attracted me. And when I came into WFG, I hit the ground running. I had BPMs at my house, and I was grabbing all these people. And then within 2 months, I think I had a total of 15 people. 10 of them were licensed already. And so I was really, you know, dragging my wife out, going to places with me. But at the same time, I had another business with my brother. And we had an office in Glendora. We were doing process serving for attorneys. We were serving subpoenas on behalf of attorneys. And so I was building that business prior to WFG. And with WFG, I wasn't making the money fast enough to sustain my other business. So I kind of let that go. And but I kept my policy because I knew how important it was for me and my family. I have 4 kids, 2, 3 now are in college, and Sierra there is my youngest and tallest. But now that all this has happened, I had to reinvent myself. So always been creative, right? And before the accident, I would do a little art projects. Print artist was what I am. If you can go to my website, upcprints.com, and there's
What is that again?
upcprints.com. And then at some point, you guys can come up and see what I do.
Where do you want her to go?
There's under services,
It's there, huh?
Yeah.
She's on the website.
under services. If you scroll down, there are some videos. Scroll down. Yeah,
More?
keep going. Keep going. That one right there.
Want me to click it?
Yeah. I don't know if you guys can see that.
We'll make it big. Okay. You can see it? Yeah.
Okay.
A unique pics creation.
Yes.
Awesome.
They can turn the light over, dog.
Hmm?
Can you turn the lights on?
Turn the lights off?
Okay, that's good.
Better.
Your connection.
Is it services? Take a picture and
Oh, you don't have a volume?
It's the volume, always the problem.
It's the volume. You need a computer tech.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah,
Is this the one?
yeah, you can turn it up.
Should I volume?
Well, I'll narrate for you. So basically, what I do is I have a special mouse that I use, like you see right there. And I use that to use Photoshop. And I make a bunch of art pieces based on what I can do on the Photoshop. So I'm gonna pass around some of my pieces. But first, watch the video. I'm gonna demonstrate. So right there, I pulled up a image, and I'm gonna superimpose several images into one. And that's just all from my mouth.
Okay.
Sorry, it's we're not high tech here.
I didn't expect to see.
Okay, so I took an image, and then from that image, I created a metal plate. And that's basically what I do, is I'll take images from photos that people send me or other artists I work with. They'll send me pictures of your documents. Yeah. And I create
This
stuff.
is the sample?
Those are all the sample
I didn't
images.
know that you pursued this, James.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. You talked about this one 3 years ago, 4 years even,
4
but I
years.
didn't know that you're still doing
Doing
it.
it, yeah.
It's his passion.
Yeah.
Now he's back
So
to
you
it.
use that,
Yeah.
that thing in your mouth
It's
to
similar to
move
this.
around and then
Yeah.
to create that thing?
Right.
So they can send
So-
pictures and, yeah.
Is it approved now on this
It's like-
This is
The thing that he used, because
This is like two pictures,
No,
right?
that's-
Yeah.
that's-
One.
That's two photographs that I merged into one, and I burned it into the glass.
Wow. Oh my.
Yeah.
This is wood.
That's wood. All my pieces,
So we
This is
can-
wood.
that's metal.
Okay.
All
Sit
my
around.
pieces look like glass,
Wow.
even if it's on wood.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Hey, look at this. I like the outfit.
Wow.
So.
So creative.
Okay, did you get the website? I didn't even know that James is pursuing this business. It was like, we're talking about it in the area,
Yeah,
and, oh God.
it was,
So many
it
things.
was
Want me to
just
turn the
a-
light back on?
Yeah,
You have a website, yeah. You have a website, James?
yeah. It's upcprints.com.
UPCC Prince.
upcprints.com. And so,
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's alive, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Prince,
Oh,
So pretty, wow.
okay, .com.
Very talented.
mm-hmm.
Okay,
so,
Beautiful. UPCprints.com.
I think there are other things, I saw other designs, they can go to the website,
I do so many things.
yeah, made of glass, right?
Beautiful.
Oh, my.
I did a whole floor for one of my clients. And, basically, it's on glass and they're floor tiles, but they're literally glass, you can see through it.
Wow.
And, hold that picture up of the Asian lady.
Here. This one?
No, that one's metal, the glass one,
This one?
yeah. So basically, optic glass
Oh,
floor
both
tiles,
sided.
yeah. And it's actually burned into the underside, flip it over. So it looks like a matte finish on that side. So that's the side that you would tile down onto the floor. And then you would see the shiny
The
side
image.
image on the, through it. So you can walk on the floor.
Wow.
So literally I made a floor where it's all water and it looks like you're walking on a swimming pool when you walk into an office.
Wow.
Yeah. And, I did, my art spans to, mugs,
Yeah.
acrylic, curved acrylic, wedding, what was it?
Oh,
Oh,
oh, okay, oh, so, you
Yeah.
can place your children here, huh?
Personalize. Everything.
Personalize your family.
Did you put it in Amazon? No cost?
That's okay.
The gift,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
That's
Yeah,
cute.
the gift.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
nice gift, yeah.
Okay.
And
you are the only doing this, I think. I
I'm
mean,
the
this is
only
my
one
first time.
yeah,
So how do you actually apply the metal to it?
so
Somebody does it for you.
what is a process called sublimation? And, what I do is I have these specialized equipment. The paper that I use to print onto, the inks that I use to print onto, and then I have, all my items are coated with this polymer coating. And without getting too technical, the, ink that I use when it's heated up, it turns into a gas, and then it bonds to the polymer coating that I put on any of my objects. And then when it transfers to it, it's a spitting mirror image of whatever I print. There's no loss of pixelations or anything. As you can see in my work right there, that's exactly what I see on the computer when I go to print a product. So even if I were to print on, say, my shirt, it will look exactly the way I see it on the computer. All the colors are exactly the same. There's one glass piece with the little boy. Can you grab that, baby? I work with photographers also. It's on the bottom. That one,
This is glass.
that's glass. So,
Oh.
this one was sent to me by, this lady, her name is Liz. She's a photographer, she does really great work. Photos, weddings and all that stuff, right? And she sent me that. She just wanted to test to see what I can do. She sent me one of her prints, digital photos. And when I printed it, it looked exactly how it was that she sent it to me. Even the shadows in the background, everything. So when she received it, oh, she was like, oh my God, it was better than I expected it to be. You got every single color, every shade, and who would know better than a professional photographer? So that's how I've been building my business. But I could not do that without being able to function with the caregivers, paying them, and just having a peace of mind to know that things are getting taken care of on the financial end of things. 5 years doesn't sound like a lot, but really it is a lot for someone with my situation. I've been out 1 year, a little over 1 year since March of 2017, and I've come quite a long way. Who knows what's gonna come back in terms of my legs or, sensation. I do have sensation all the way throughout to my feet.
That's
I
good.
just can't move them, but at least I know if I'm injured or something like that, I can tell.
Yeah,
So that's a blessing.
that is.
But yeah, that's my story.
Wow.
I hope that when you guys go out there, you can take my story with you and share it and let people know that, it's no time like the present to plan for the latter. You'll never know what can come your way. And another interesting thing that happened, my brother, his girlfriend, she has a son. And this is just how a freak of an accident can befall any of us. He's 22 and, young, think they're invincible. He went to Mexico, and this was only about 2 months ago. Went to Mexico, they rode some ATVs down in Mexico. Somehow or another, the ATV flipped and caught his arm and then ripped his arm out of its socket and severed it. And of course, being in Mexico, there were no facilities that could reattach it in time. So he lost his arm. And that was just a stark reminder to us of the importance of maintaining our policy, because that's another issue that you guys will run into. You'll sell a policy, but a lot of people will choose to not maintain their policy because they think that, well, I need the money, and that extra $200 or $300, that will, I can use that to go do this or do that. When you compare to how much money we spend at Starbucks or just going out to eat, just going out to eat in general, we'll spend about, the average family, it's about $100 a week. Average family of 4.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes your lunches at work, going to the lunch truck, going to Starbucks, this one over here. I asked her, why do you tip the people at Starbucks when the people at McDonald's work just as hard? It's a conundrum I'll never understand. But Yeah, but hopefully you guys can take that with you, when you're out there, presenting something that might benefit a family, you know, help them later on in life. Not to mention the benefit, speaking of which, one other thing that I was not aware of until this, situation was that when something does occur and you're deemed disabled, permanently disabled, you don't have to pay your premiums anymore. Yeah, your
Wow.
premiums are automatically, paid, folded into your policy. So you still maintain your policy, and, yeah, and you still benefit from the gains that it has as well. So that's another thing that you can, let your potential clients know as well.
So you did a nationwide long-term care, and they follow the 2% of whatever the base amount is.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
And we have Transamerica too.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's still in effect for him, but he's not paying premium on it
Okay, so
anymore.
Transamerica is not premium at all.
No premium,
So you have two.
have
Yes.
to.
Oh, okay, so the
Yeah.
the nationwide has 250 and Transamerica has,
Actually, the Transamerica has 250, the Nationwide was 150.
oh.
And Nationwide came second, because that was months after I had gotten Transamerica. They announced that rider benefit, and that's what was presented to me. That's why I ended up getting the Nationwide. It's because of the rider benefit that came up. They don't offer that rider anymore, I don't think. If they do, they package it a little differently. But you know, with this business, different benefits come and go. And when something good comes along, you kinda have to jump on it, because they'll take it away and you won't have that same, benefit to offer future, clients. So that's why it's important for you to know your products and attend the, whenever you get some of those product salesmen coming out, representatives, make sure you attend those, because they're very, very informative. And, plus, having the contacts to, give you the information on the fly, you know, I can call them tomorrow morning and, you know, present the question that my client asked and have the answer the next day. You know, having those direct contacts established really helps, because if you call Nationwide, their general number, you're gonna get through this voicemail to that voicemail. And when you finally get somebody, they have no clue what you're talking about, because the products that are presented for, by people who are doing the wholesale market like us, is different from what they offer through their general, internal, means, so.
Do you have any questions?
We have
Any
David,
questions?
right?
Okay, no questions.
So, yeah, so the good thing, James, is like, now I am an employee of Kaiser. I didn't even know my policy in Kaiser that we have to do this.
Yeah.
You're 17, he's working 17 years, I'm working 11 years in
Yeah.
Kaiser. Then we have how many employees in Kaiser around me thinking they are covered, but that's why I invited them here, nurses, but
Yeah.
they're not
They-
here. So,
Yeah.
that's.
Me too.
Benefited.
We're not covered.
I wanna go back to that 401k. Did they settle it down now that you can avail on that money?
Now I can, because, I had to fight Kaiser
Okay.
in order to be able to keep my insurance. They were going to, put me on COBRA, which for my family would have been $1,800
$1,800.
a month. And so my wife actually did more research into what would benefit me come to find out, first off, I got a call from the HR liaison, and she was supposed to be the benefits coordinator. She told me that first, if you don't come back to work within 2 months after your disability runs out, then we're gonna have to terminate your employment, and you lose all of your health care, and, your family loses their coverage. You'd have to go into COBRA. So she sent us the COBRA forms in preparation for that event, right? And, not only that, with Kaiser, since it's a union hospital, you have to, bid for a position. So first, I would have to find a position that I can do with my mouth. Second, I would have to bid against other people who might want that position if they have more seniority over me. So, really, I couldn't come back to work. And I was pretty, anxious about that, depressed about it, because, you know, I thought I was gonna lose everything. And then lo and behold, we finally contacted this union rep who knew her information. And she said, you know, why don't you just retire from Kaiser on a medical disability retirement? And I'm like, what? We can do that? And sure enough, they tried to deny it at first, but we pushed through, and then that's how I was able to retire on a medical disability retirement and keep my family covered under my same insurance, no COBRA, my same $5 copays. Everything is
Praise
exactly
God.
the same until I qualified for Part B Medicare. And then after that, they will cover what Part B doesn't cover for the rest of my life. So,
So they
The
cover
form-
your Medicare A and B now?
no, I just
Kaiser.
have, Kaiser. I'm too
Yeah,
young to
you're too
have
young, you don't
Medicare.
Yeah.
As for the 401K, since I'm now technically not employed, I can withdraw my 401K or roll it over if I want to.
Yeah, do that. That's the
Yeah.
best thing to do. And
Yeah. And
have
so,
a life income stream.
right, and then we also have a pension that we can draw from as well,
From Kaiser,
from Kaiser.
yeah, for the number of years that
Right.
you work with them.
And, for you, Jasmine, as an employee, we have, I think at the beginning, or no, in November every year, where we can change how much we pay towards our supplementary
Mhm.
insurance. I would advise you to put as much as you can into that, because MetLife kicked in also. MetLife pays me $3,500 a month.
So basically, it makes him whole between Social Security.
MetLife.
Right, so between Social Security, they cover, whatever amount to make him whole prior to the accident.
Right.
But this is when you add the supplemental
Supplemental.
to it.
Right.
Because the basic one is only gonna pay you, I don't know, like 50-60%, but with the supplemental, it will make you whole, basically.
Right.
Your
Okay,
whatever
for the
you make.
salary,
Right.
And that lasts for 10 years.
100% almost.
Yes,
Zero
Or
to
10 years.
100% to the MetLife.
yeah. So
But you have to add the supplemental.
You have to add that.
Okay, we can advise, you know, but at
Right.
the same time, they have to get the outside LTC
Right,
for, yeah.
right.
And then
long-term
just the clarification in the 401K.
Mhm.
So when we were trying to get the 401K, he cannot touch the 401K because he's still employed with Kaiser, so he cannot withdraw it. You can't borrow money from it because he's not actively working, is what they were telling us. We can go under the medical clause, but the way it works is you have to, like for example, modification on our house, right, to make it accessible. You have to get a doctor's order that you need the modification. You have to tell how much it costs to make the modification. And then
And
the
you have to
insurance
approve.
has to deny it,
Yeah.
and that's when you send to the 401k, and then they will release you whatever you need. But it's a process,
Yeah.
and it's like almost impossible.
It's impossible, especially
Yeah.
dealing with Kaiser.
Right.
It's next to impossible.
I don't think it's only Kaiser, I think it's
It's
totally,
Everywhere.
yeah.
Right, it's
Yeah.
those kind of investment,
Yeah.
401k and 403 and whatever
Exactly.
they have
Yeah.
out there, so. It's not something that you could fall back to when we were in that situation. We thought like, oh, well, we have 401k, we could use the 401k, but
Yeah, there's
Forget about it.
we didn't get,
Yeah.
anything from the 401k from.
Yeah.
But that is really good.
And so most people, when they get injured, they go on disability. And so disability usually lasts 6 months to a year,
State disability,
state disability, and then it runs out.
and then you have better social security.
And then you have to apply for Social Security, and you may or may not get denied
Yeah.
a few times before you finally get it. So it's a long process, but in the interim, for that full year that you're waiting for all that stuff to go through, you need to eat, you need to feed your family. You need to be made whole somewhere. So, with the LTC also, that doesn't kick in until 3 months after the,
So three months we.
yeah.
Yeah, 90 days, 90 days. But
Yeah.
do they reimburse whatever you
Yes, they
spend?
did like
They're
retro.
reimbursed,
Yeah.
they retro it. So, yeah, it's such a tremendous, package policy that I have the opportunity to have gotten. And if any of your providers offer that, that's a huge selling point for your potential clients.
Yeah, and for our clients like us, based on our experience, Transamerica and Nationwide are really good with customer service, cause
Oh, okay.
in contact
Yeah.
with them and going back and forth, they were really good with returning your call, answering your
Yeah.
question. And so it was an easy transition for us,
Yeah.
of course, they ask a lot for documentation, which is a part of the process, but.
On this
They're
kind
very
of
good.
claims, when you call Transamerica or Nationwide, where do you directly connect? To the underwriting or to the?
To Transamerica,
claim.
to the Transamerica,
Claim.
the claim, yeah. And then they usually will assign like a person for you, and they will be in direct contact with you. Right, you will have the extension at that time, and then that's how we just get easily, because they already know our case, so basically. So that's the good thing is, you have like one person to deal with, when we were doing claims. Yeah,
Right.
which makes a big difference.
Oh, yeah. Also, MetLife, they are the ones who filed for the Social Security for you.
Nice.
So
Okay.
some of the insurance companies will actually do that, offer that as a benefit to file for the Social Security claims on behalf of their clients. So,
So that's a good information, James.
yeah.
That's,
So I tell you, I can have a business just trying to guide people through the red tape.
I bet.
Constantine people. But, if there aren't any more questions,
Wow,
thank you.
that was valuable.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you so much.